Hello guys, this is Arash with Professor X, and we are recapping essentially the last episode of House of the Dragon Season 2. I'm fresh off of watching it, so this video is going to be a little bit more unedited, unlike our previous videos, and this one is just going to be me giving my honest thoughts here. If that's something that you're interested in, keep watching. If you want some other stuff, we have some more videos coming in the coming days. And okay, so let's get right into it. So essentially, fresh off of the ending of the season, well, I gotta say, there was no big battle, which I think is gonna be everyone's biggest complaint. It's definitely an anticlimactic ending compared to previous seasons of something from this series, where they usually always had like a giant battle in like the 8th episode leading up to it, and the other 2 episodes at the end usually kind of played it off of that giant battle and just kind of led up into the next season. We saw that with the Battle of the Bastards back in the original Game of Thrones series, the Battle of the Blackwater. Usually, like, whenever there was a giant battle, it usually happened towards the end of the season. Kind of got that flipped this season, where they had a giant battle in the middle with Rook's Rest, where we saw Rhaenys get killed and Aegon get horribly crippled with Sunfire. I definitely think that the reason for that was, 1, the chronology of it, and 2, to definitely just set up Aegon's Mad King, I'm crippled beyond all belief and I can't really lead the army of Westeros anymore. I think that was kind of what they were going for, but in my personal opinion, ever since they did that to Aegon, he just kind of was just sitting there, just kind of wailing in pain and being angry at his brother for ruining him for life. And that was just kind of Aemon's whole deal. You could see it from like the first season, where he was always just like, hey, you shouldn't be king, I should be king, but because of the way that the situation is, I'm just gonna have to deal with the fact that you're always gonna be king. And then back at Rook's Rest, we saw him take advantage of that moment and hopefully make it seem like he was attempting to kill the detractor Rhaenys, and he ultimately just burned up Aegon, and Aegon turned out to live. And he did that whole like meme thing where it's like, oh, I lived, bitch. Like, he definitely did not plan for him to live there. Rhaenyra, like, summoning up her bastards and trying to find a way to get everyone to support her, but also to try to avoid the war entirely. I think that partially her whole thing here is that she did not want any of this in total. She even said it herself, I think, in the last episode when she was arguing with her son, where she just did not want this whole thing to happen, but like, most family dramas happen. Alicent mistook Viserys' words and thought, hey, he flipped himself at the last minute. And then she got corrected at the beginning of this season. So Alicent, ever since hearing that, has kind of gone on her own spiritual journey of, oh, I screwed up really bad, and now I left my sons, who are like monsters, in charge of Westeros. We see her and Rhaenyra at the end of this season, at the end of the show, and they did the second thing where in the first part during this season, where Rhaenyra went over into the Red Keep, she was like confronting Alicent and clearing up the air, because honestly, this is the first time that they've met up, I'm presuming in the show, years since the conflict started. And then Alicent flipping that script in the very last episode, visiting Rhaenyra's home base and clearing up the air on her side as well, which is an interesting flip of things. Certainly not an excuse for a big battle, but this is essentially, this entire season to me was just a setup season, which is fine. No, it's not really fine. It's not really like, it's one battle with Rook's Rest, and we kind of got our viewing out of that, and then the rest of it is just politics and moving the chess pieces into play for the rest of the conflict. And for those of you who don't know, I'm sorry I'm about to reveal this, but most of House of the Dragon is already written out. It came out in a book. There's also a little animatic that was released in the original Game of Thrones Blu-ray that also pretty much animates the entire conflict. So all of that is already planned out. It's not going to be like the original series where the writers are just kind of doing this off of scribbles that George R. R. Martin handed them. So that's really what it's going to be about. We got a lot of weird moments this season, especially Damon, considering he's just been he's just kind of been hallucinating for most of the season, just tripping balls in Harrenhal and like dealing with the politics of just basically self-exiling himself because he's just grappling with the fact that his brother chose his own daughter over his own brother, and he's just kind of dealing with those things. He touched some blood from a tree, and all of a sudden now he got a flash forward to the events of the original series, and we see the fucking White Walkers again, and we see a little sneak peek at Daenerys and her 3 dragons, and that's kind of where he just snaps out of it, and he's just like, oh my god, this conflict is more than I thought it was. I'm gonna stop being a fucking prick now. And then he just goes back to Rhaenyra and pledges loyalty to her again. So definitely a quick heel turn there. It turns out all Damon, the most dangerous man in Westeros, needed to go back was basically just to trip balls for about 8 episodes, and then he's back on track. So yeah, I definitely say, and then Aegon's whole thing. I think I mentioned this earlier, where he's just mad, and he's in bed now, and he's all half burnt. He's doing a whole Two-Face thing, and Larys is kind of feeling for him because he's like, oh, now you're the useless brother now, considering your injuries. I know what it's like, and I'm gonna get you out of here. And then Aegon's just kind of mad and saying, hey, did you know my dick doesn't work? And that's entirely what I kind of got from that entire conversation. Was Larys is like, we need to get you out of here, and Aegon's like, no, I'm still king. By the way, my dick doesn't work, so there's that. So yeah, that's definitely something else that was kind of a weird thing to insert there. And then the Bastard Dragon Riders, it was shown that they are able to control dragons. We haven't seen them in action yet, though, so there's that. But it's established now that House Black now has more dragons than House Green. They have more dragons. They now have an army. They now have pretty much everything in control. Even Alicent supports them. So if anything, everyone's just kind of plotting for Rhaenyra to take over. But considering that Ryan Condal, I think he said that this show would end in 4 seasons. We got about 2 seasons on top of just maybe war, maybe more political plotting. Something's gonna go wrong. Aemon's not gonna give up the throne without a fight. It's that kind of deal over there. So I definitely think that in those cases, we're going to get something. But we won't see that until at least 2026 at the earliest. But luckily, this is not the end of Game of Thrones stuff. We got a teaser that came out recently for the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, where it follows Sir Duncan the Tall and Egg. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be a more grounded show based around, the street level. So not everyone in there is going to be a scheming politician or somebody from royalty. We're actually going to see somebody on the ground with the blacksmiths and the fishermen and the knights. So something certainly a little bit more combat heavy there, hopefully. But other than that, it looks like this season, I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10, I think. It definitely strikes me as the kind of season where they had to stretch out a lot of content before they could get into the beefier stuff, because if they just kind of did it, the pacing would be all weird. But the pacing was, I'm going to be honest, it was at a snail's pace this season anyway. So we definitely have that. But so far, 7 out of 10 season, it was okay. It was all right. A lot of setup. We got one fight out of it. So, We'll just see. We'll just see what happens. Anyway, thanks for listening to me ramble if you made it this far. And click on these other videos if you're interested in our content. It's a little bit more tighter edited than what this is going to be, but we just needed to get this out. So see you later. Bye.